All right, so I'm back here with a live stream with Julia at a slightly different time, but I think this will be a good experiment to do it at this time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here to get started. Get right into it. All right, so last up on Julia, I believe I got into packages, and that's where I left off. And so let's go ahead and take a look. I was in here under Julia. Here we go, getting started. And in particular, yeah, I was at modules here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this thing again. Wake this thing up. And at the same time, what I can do is go to the Julia documentation. And I'm going to go to, I had modules here. So I think I'm next up on documentation, which is a kind of a cool topic. So this thing will take a second to wake up. Let's take a look at the documentation. It can be accessed from the REPL or by doing the question mark. So that's a little bit like Python or IPython, but it's the opposite. I'm going to go ahead and pop in here. So let's put in documentation here as the goal. And not sure why that's in recovery mode, but interesting. Let's double check Julia is here. Well, that's not good. Or is it JL? That's Julia. Or is it JL? Let's go ahead and check out what's going on here. Let's see if I can rebuild this thing. Hopefully not a problem. Container build failed. Check troubleshooting guide. I'm not sure why this particular environment has an issue, but if I look at the dev container build, what do we got here? We have Julia. Is that a problem? Oh, maybe it's because of that. That doesn't look like I needed that in there. Looks like I had a bad line in there about using GPUs. That I think was the fix. So you have to watch your dev container builds if you're using GitHub code spaces. You want to make sure you don't blow it up. And let's take a look. We can see here it's pulling down the Julia VS Code dev container. So that looks like a pretty smooth process, actually. Okay, so that was the fix, and I might as well check it in, so it doesn't get blown away. So I'm going to say git add .dev container, add anything else in here, commit it, adding changes. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the README, and I'm going to add in, that was Julia modules, already got that done. Let's go into the next topic. So I guess it would be 10, which would be documentation. And it's like the first thing that we can do is just use the question mark. So let's try that out. Type in Julia, type in cosine, I guess. No, other way around. I mean, I'm so used to IPython. Do question mark. Oh, I see. So the question mark will just toggle things, and syntax space required before. So let's see what it says. Documentation can be accessed in the REPL or in Julia by typing the question mark followed by the name. Oh, I see. VS Code will show the documentation when you hover over a function name. Okay, well, let's take a look. If I had this, I see. No. If I hover over a function name, I don't know if I see the documentation. So I'm not getting that. Not sure why that's not showing up. What else do we get? I guess the question, yeah, it looks like it just toggles. Like if I just toggle, if I say question mark, it toggles, and then I say cosine, compute cosine of x, where x is in the radians. So I guess that's the main takeaway is you just use the question mark. So let's go ahead and put that in. So I do question mark. It'll give me stuff like, let's just do it again, cosine. Right? You can put that in there as an example. Writing documentation, Julia enables you to document functions. And so any string just before an object will be a document. These are called doc strings. So that's kind of like Python, but kind of the opposite. Although Python does have module documentation like that. But let's try it out. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a file called doc Julia, and then I will put some stuff inside of here. So I can just say, build and add function. We want, that's not the, that's my comment. Build an add function. And let me just double check that this favorite tool is enabled, which I don't think it is. So if I go to extensions and we say to Copilot, it's not installed. I need to put that into the dev container. So I'm going to say install these two, the nightly and the experiment. And then I'm also going to add this to the JSON. And I'm also going to go here. I'm going to add this to the JSON. And what I'll need to do as well is just take a look at this, and we'll notice that, look, see, these are important for me to check in. So I'll say get add dot dev container, adding nightly Copilot. Git push. There we go. Great. And here we go. Now if I go through here and I say build an add function, let's try that out. There we go. Function add A and B, return A and B. We got that. And now if I want to add some documentation to it, what I could do is use, I think it's the triple quote. Yeah, triple quote, just like Python. So we'll go through here and we'll say, this is a function that adds numbers. There you go. Now, how would I call that documentation? So always show it, blah, 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 blah. And there we go. We have some, oh, I see. So you could even show examples like that. There's even doc tests, which is pretty crazy. That might be fun to write. Let's try that out. So this would look like that. So if I type in Julia, I do question doc Julia. How do you print out the documentation? That's a good question. So functions and methods. So functions in Julia have multiple, when applied to, so you can do parameters, the doc macro, if condition, dynamic documentation. Add docstring type modules. So how do you print it out? That's the big thing I'm trying to figure out here. So we have Julia enables package developers. We get that. Oh, documentation is interpreted as markdown. So you can use indentation, which is pretty cool. Here's a more complex using markdown. Is that a doc test or is that just doc test or any code? Sometimes, for example, the following doc string variable a is defined. Oh, I see. You have to say doc test. Julia array. Okay, so it's just like Python's doc test. So let's try that out. So if I do this, ooh, that's the wrong thing. So if I wait, what happened to the documentation? It just disappeared here. Methods, documentation, and so I need something like I need the doc tests, and yeah, this is what I need. I need this. I need this whole thing. So copy, and if I throw that in there, that looks. Does it need to be indented like that? Yeah, I would think you would pull it over. So would it be shift? No, shift. A command. There you go. So making a doc test. And then if I say Julia and I said, let's try it out. If I said, I forget again how to import a module. So Julia import module. It should be pretty simple. You just say module qualified name. You just say doc Julia. Does that work? I just covered this and I don't even remember. What did I do? Oh, include. You do that. I see. So I would say include doc Julia. Does that work? Ah, there we go. That's all I needed to do. So we'll add this here. Like that. And then if I say add, or I say x is equal to 1, and y is equal to 2, like that. And then I said add x and y 3. So will that work as doc strings? Let's try. So if I go back to here and I just paste this in, or doc test, I could do, I don't know. It looks like that could work. Now, how do I run the doc test? So here we go. This is a doc string, a variable a is defined. Calling rand. Okay, we get that. And then you can run make -c doc test true. Okay, let's try it out. So if I exit this, I do make -c doc test true. Whoa. Let's make.c doc test not work. Make test C. Make dash C doc. What does that? What does that do? Make dash C doc, doc or doc Julia doc test true. So how to run doc test Julia? How do you run it? I'm starting with Julia and I want to do doc tests. For the record, this is now supported. Just add run tests using, what is this? Doc testing. For example, Documenter provides doc test functions. By default, it also will attempt to verify all doc tests on a manual. Using test Documenter doc test my package. So the following and run test.jl. Okay, let's try it out. So I'm going to make a file called run test.jl. Run, oh, I spell that. It's all lowercase. Run test.jl. Run test.jl. And if I go here and I just put this in and I say doc Julia, and then I say Julia doc test, does it work? Test. Package they're not to install. Oh, import package. Okay. So I guess this adds some kind of test system. Now if I run it, my package is not found a current path. Not sure how this, yeah, so this is definitely a little bit complicated. Trying to get doc test to work. I don't know how to get this to work. Huh. My package is not found in current path. And if I go to Julia, I see doc test julia.jl. This is okay. So fixing. Oh, I see you can do this. Do you fix? Using, well, let's try that. Let's if I just open up and I say using Documenter and I say tests or no Julia, does that work? Package add. Yeah, this might be beyond my skill level currently. Yeah, I'd have to dig into this a little bit. This definitely seems pretty complex. Filtering doc tests. Documenter will run blocks. Doc test failures during make docs. So here's a doc test example. Here's a REPL example. But how do you actually run this? This will take a little bit of time. It's good to know that I'll just put it. Well, let's see if Copilot can help me. Actually, that might be an interesting thing to try. So, I can say like test my code, test my doc test code in Julia. Let's try that. Okay, using tests. Seems excessive. It's asking the same thing over and over again. And now test doc Julia using .jl using doc strings. Doc string tests. Happens using doc Julia using test. And not sure. Notice I say Julia run tests. Package doc Julia not found in current path. Yeah, don't know how to do this yet. So that didn't work. It is interesting to know that you can add doc strings. Now I just need to know how to actually test it. Now I also would like to know how I could actually look at the documentation. I guess I should say go up arrow. I say include doc Julia. We have add. And I say question mark add. Oh, there we go. So that's pretty cool. At least I was able to get the help menu integrated. So this does seem to be a pretty cool feature. I guess I'll put a note to myself that to verify, to see documentation, use include, then do question mark add, like that. So that was good. And whenever possible, examples should be self-contained and runnable, which I agree. And I would say that whenever possible, we should be able to run your documentation, which I can't. Functions in Julia may have multiple implementations. Advanced usage. I think that's probably all I care about. The only other thing that would have been cool is to figure out if there's like a one-liner to test docs, but I don't know. I could do one more search here and just say like how to run doc test Julia command line, and blocks, how to run. Let's see here. I can't get these doc tests to run. So this definitely seems to be a kind of a complex topic, actually, is how to get doc tests to run. And it looks like the documentation is lacking. And I could look at the help menu and maybe there's a command line tool. I mean, that's cool. I guess maybe a lot of the stuff is in their command line tool. Maybe I could do help and then I could grep for doc tests. Nope. Julia. Huh. Code coverage. Interesting. Doc tests. Yeah. How to run Julia doc tests. Doc tests. Yeah. Definitely am unsure here of how the doc tests work, but I'll just add that to a note. It just says, to figure out how to actually run Julia doc tests. There you go. So then for next week, I'm going to cover the next topic, which would be metaprogramming, which I do like metaprogramming. I'm more of a Python expert in metaprogramming, but try this out, metaprogramming. Okay. All right. Well, that looks like a good place to stop for this week. I'm going to say get status, check this in, add readme, add all this, adding in docs. So some good things, some bad things. Oh, the mismatched quotes. There we go. Right. That's a good place to stop next week, metaprogramming.